Scotney Castle has a long and rich history. It's just outside Tunbridge Wells in Kent. The earliest parts of the castle were built in 1378 by Roger de Ashburnham, and this is the part of the Scotney Castle that is said to be haunted. Both the castle and the house were altered over the years by both the Darrell and Hussey families. In the 1830s, Edward Hussey III engaged the architect Anthony Salvin to build a new house at the top of the hill looking across the valley. Select sections of the old castle were deliberately ruined to form the focus of his new garden. As a result, it's now a property primarily celebrated as being one of the most significant survivals of a complete picturesque vision. Scotney Castle has been in the ownership of the National Trust since Christopher Hussey's death in 1970. The house remained the private residence of his widow, Betty Hussey, until 2006, and it first opened its doors to visitors in 2007. The Hussey family originally came from Worcestershire and they moved into the area in the early 1700s. They had made their money from the iron industry and continued to pursue their interests in this with leasing partnerships at local Sussex forges. Edward Hussey I purchased the Scotney estate in 1778. In the mid-19th century, his grandson, Edward Hussey III, re-imaged the estate along picturesque principles. Edward and his wife Henrietta had 6 children who all enjoyed growing up in this idyllic setting. Edward Windsor Hussey, known as Edwy, took over the running of the estate when his father died in 1894. He lived here with his wife Rosamond during both World Wars, and he hosted evacuees from King's School, Rochester in 1939. Edwy's nephew, Christopher Hussey, took ownership of the house in 1952 and was acutely aware of the decline of the country house in England after the Second World War. He acted to secure the future of the estate by creating 6 flats in the house which aimed to improve its longevity as a home, with the rents providing additional income. He bequeathed the property and the collection to the National Trust in 1970. Built between 1837 and 1843, the house contains a large collection added to by 3 generations of the Hussey family. Almost entirely indigenous and largely dating from the 19th and 20th centuries, the collection illustrates the evolving history of the house and garden and how Christopher and Betty Hussey modernised in 1952. Significant pieces include Salvin designed furniture, artworks by 20th century artists including John Piper and John Ward, and Christopher Hussey's large working library from which he researched country life articles. Throughout the year at Scotney Castle, they have loads of events, from outdoor theatres, they have garden tours, guided estate walks. There's huge gardens, a wall garden, and there's also play areas for children. So there's absolutely loads to do. Betty Hussey once said, "Scotney may not be one of the great country houses, but it has for me all the warmth and welcoming attributes an English country house should have, and whatever we have done to make it easier for present day living has still left it one of the most pleasant and livable houses I know." The estate covers 780 acres of mixed woodland, Grade 1 listed parkland and hop gardens. They have a tenant farmer there, and he keeps some Sussex cattle, which was a herd that had been kept by both Edward Windsor and Christopher Hussey. There's also a quarry there that was excavated in 1835 to provide stone for the new house, and fossilised remains of the Wealden seabed dating from the Mesozoic, probably said that incorrectly, geological era were uncovered. Edward Windsor Hussey incorporated the quarry into the picturesque landscape, planting it with ferns, spring bulls and Ghent azaleas. There's also a 1-acre walled garden that was built in around 1840, which provided the family with fresh produce. And this is the bit that I really came to see, Scotney Castle. It was built as a fortified manor house in the 14th century, and it was later passed into the hands of the Darrell family. It's supposedly really haunted. So Arthur Darrell was thought to have died in Europe in 1720. His funeral was held at Scotney on the 12th of December, and as earth was thrown into the coffin's lid, a stranger in a black cloak standing among the mourners spoke out. "That is me they think they are burying," before it vanished. In 1900s, Arthur Darrell's coffin was excavated. It was full of stones. Visitors to Scotney have reported seeing ghostly figures climb out of the moat, covered in weeds, only to vanish. It is thought that this ghostly figure is that of a revenue collector who was murdered and thrown into the moat by Arthur Darrell before he faked his death. It was lovely walking around here. It did have vibes. They weren't sinister, but you felt like you weren't alone. And I spoke to a member of staff that was down here doing some gardening, and I said, had she ever experienced anything? And she said exactly the same thing. She said, you might be alone, but you never feel like you're alone. You always feel like somebody's watching you. Now this little guy was following me. He was so tame. I have got some video that I took on my phone where later on he flew up onto the fence and almost like he was talking to me. He looked me straight in the eye. It is on my TikTok account. And as they say, when robins appear, loved ones are near. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.